Regressor of the Fallen Family. Chapter 40. This is Myeongjong tea. It's brewed with medicinal herbs that help clear the mind. It's a specialty of our mage tower. Please, have a taste. Ledios offered the teacup, carefully observing the countenance of amazing, no, the valuable customer who had returned to the mage tower after a long absence. He's definitely young. If I play my cards right, I might be able to reel him in. Due to the tight budget for the month, more precisely, the situation was so dire that the owner of the mage tower himself had to step forward to eagerly court a mere deal of 1.5 million gold. No doubt artifacts were the highest value products produced by the mage tower, but artifacts, which started at a cost of 10 million each, were fortunate if they sold even a few units a year, due to the lack of interested buyers. Thus, the main products were relatively affordable, scrolls, and in this respect, the Earth Mage Tower that he led was slightly less competitive. During peacetime, as opposed to war, the practical uses of earth magic were mostly in agricultural development, farming, or large-scale civil engineering. However, very few nobles were willing to use expensive scrolls for such trivial tasks. After all, they could just mobilize the peasants of their territory. As a result, the Earth Mage Tower always struggled with a tight budget. It was not true that the Mage Tower had become inept after he became the Tower Master. It was natural for the Tower Master to use some of the Mage Tower's budget for personal research. The rumors that this impacted the competitiveness of the entire tower were sheer nonsense. Of course, the reason the budget was tight this month was because he'd overspent a bit, but with the hope he'd discovered, it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. If I succeed, the Mage Tower succeeds. Yes, indeed. It's a tea that the Tower Master can be proud of. It has a delightful aroma. Haha, as expected, you have quite the discerning taste. But did you say you wanted to buy 150 collapsed scrolls? Ledios himself regretted speaking as soon as the words left his lips. He'd foolishly dived straight into the main agenda, reacting immediately to unexpected praise. Not the demeanor worthy of a noble. It was a clear mistake. Yes, that's right. Fortunately, the gracious customer didn't seem to react. Maybe it wasn't too late to try and feel it out. Ha 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 ha. I'm excited about such a big transaction after a long time, but there's a bit of a problem actually. Problem, you say? As you know, a 4th level circle scroll can only be produced under the guidance of a 5th circle mage, and such high-quality manpower is not abundant in our mage tower. Ledios cautiously baited, watching the buyer's reaction. So what is it? The buyer's gaze darkened, and the atmosphere turned chilly in an instant. It was not the response he'd expected from an easy mark. But I have to try at least once more. Gulp. Ledios swallowed hard and continued cautiously. As you may be aware, scrolls are expensive to produce and cannot just be crafted in advance. So what you're saying is, you can't provide the quantity I want? But before he could even finish his sentence, the buyer's voice grew icy cold. No, not at all. Definitely not. I just meant that producing 150 scrolls might take a little time. Ahem. Ledios quickly babbled out excuses in shock. Well, there's nothing I can do then. I was planning to purchase 150 scrolls monthly. If you can't even handle 150, I'm considering looking into the Royal Mage Tower. Wait, please, sir. Yes? Monthly? Ledios was stunned, thinking he must have misunderstood. Yes. I need a total of 900 scrolls over 6 months, at a monthly rate of 150. But it was neither a delusion nor a misunderstanding. Ugh. His hand involuntarily shot up, and a cheer almost escaped him. Ahem. What are you doing? My apologies. I just needed to stretch a bit due to fatigue. He narrowly escaped the crisis with his well-honed acting skills developed over the years, believing he had perfectly managed his expression. Well, if even the first 150 scrolls are delayed, then 150 every month for 6 months is outright impossible. Thanks for the tea. But no matter what, the determined steps of the wealthy party, Kai Shen, leaving, did not stop. When the sound of footsteps thundered in his ears like lightning, Ledios had only one choice. It can be done. It must be done. Really? Of what I said, that is. Unless I intervene personally. Yes, exactly. Indeed. Could it be done? It absolutely must. 150 per month. 1.5 million per month. That's 9 million over 6 months. Ha ha! Such a splendid sum. Unaware of the words spouting from his mouth, Ledios reached for the teacup to hide his expression. Hot. But the shaking hand couldn't preserve even a shred of dignity. Are you okay, Mage? Cough. Yes. Yes, I am. My apologies. Please, just give me a moment. Right now, pride was not the issue. If the deal went through, he could silence all criticism from the elders for his excessive experimental expenses in one stroke. Ledios dashed out the door, filled with hope. 150 scrolls of fourth circle every month? You will need to involve other elders in production. Will they follow along willingly? Well, we have no choice. It's not just a month. 6 months worth. 9 million gold? Even with a third of that, we could resume the halted research. If you want to persuade the elders, you have to share the profits. That's unavoidable. I'll have to make concessions and squeeze the lower-ranking workers as much as possible. This is a clue to becoming a superior being that I've found for the first time in 20 years. But there is other work. No buts about it. Cancel all other orders. Pay the penalties. We don't have any big deals happening right now. Understood. But, and maybe those guys. Sorry? The last few words faded, but Logan understood enough. That's why someone of the stature of a mage tower owner is acting like this. With superhuman hearing strengthened by force, he accidentally overheard their conversation and grasped their situation. Creak. Shortly after, the door opened again, and Ledios entered the room with a middle-aged man bearing a somewhat stern expression. Ah ha ha. Young lord, this is the elder of our mage tower, Romerun Eo. He is in charge of producing the scrolls. Pleasure to meet you, Romerun. Compared to the mage tower owner Ledios, Romerun's slight bow somehow seemed to carry more weight. Fourth circle? But Logan found it odd that Romerun's cultivation seemed to fall short of being considered an elder. An influential mage like that should have been hard to come by in the Grandia Kingdom, renowned for its scarcity of high-grade mages. Well, it's not my problem. Ledios had held his position as mage tower owner since before rumors began circulating a decade ago about the decline in the tower's capabilities under this duplicitous-looking man. Nothing new. I just need to purchase what I need. Fortunately, from their conversation, it seemed quite likely. But then, the mage tower owner made an unexpected suggestion. But what if, instead of scrolls, we directly employ mages? What? The proposal was startling. Mages, who often came with an excess of pride and dignity, refused to be directly contracted for mundane tasks, especially those as ignoble as a construction site during peacetime. Thus, Logan hadn't even entertained the notion of employing mages in a direct contract. Are things different here? Impossible. His understanding was shaken, but his response was clear. We must. Why else would single-use scrolls be so costly? While production costs played a part, the more significant reason for the high prices was that the majority of oh-so-proud mages refused to soil their hands with manual labor, preferring the insulation of their laboratories. Employing a fourth circle mage could have the effect of 300 scrolls at less than half the cost. Are there fourth circle mages willing to come to a provincial construction site? He didn't hide the excitement in his voice, but considering the magnitude of the proposition, there was no reason for self-reproach. However, it seems there's been a bit of a misunderstanding. My apologies. What? Fourth circle mages are hard to order around, even for me. They're the tower's valuable talents. The disappointment was natural. Fourth circle mages were considered a critical asset in any mage tower. It would be a loss for the tower to forcefully involve them in unpleasant work, potentially leading to defections. Then why did you make such a suggestion to me? Well, it was to see if there was a better offer I could propose to our esteemed guest. By now, Logan no longer saw Ledios as a mage, but more as a tradesman. Instead of all the scrolls, how about I send some of our second and third circle apprentices? This better offer was what Logan had been willing to hear. Nevertheless, he almost laughed at the absurdity. It boiled down to sending a few low-ranking mages to put up a front, while still pocketing the money. I'm sorry, but 10 of them! As Logan was ready to refuse bluntly, the Tower Master preempted him. Sorry? 9 second circle mages and 1 third circle mage. I have apprentices who are experienced working together on various construction sites. I will send them to you. Logan couldn't resist being interested by such conditions. Employing 10 mages, even for lower circles, might even be better than a single fourth circle mage for a long-term construction project. Especially remarkable was the claim of specialized mages in construction work, a notion Logan could scarcely imagine. If I can employ mages affordably, that suits me just fine. I came here wanting to expedite construction. At Logan's positive response, Ledios seized the moment to suggest, how about we compromise at 120 scrolls, and I send those friends for the duration of the construction. 20 scrolls? Effectively trading 34th circle magic scrolls for 10 mages. No matter how he looked at it, it was a fair deal. Well, that seems fine. As Logan nodded, smiles bloomed on the faces of both the watching Mage Tower owner and the Elder. Each thought they had woven a perfect deal where both sides gained. But since this is such a large and long-term deal, you might be able to offer some discount. How far can you go? Yet Ledios' expression contorted once more with Logan's follow-up question. The Tower Master had played his hand too soon. What will the outcome be? Logan smiled inwardly, waiting for the reaction. They must have surmised that his visit related to ground construction work. Despite the presence of the Royal Mage Tower, which taught classes in multi-elemental magery, it couldn't match the Earth Mage Tower, which held a unique position in this field. Furthermore, mages hated the word discount attaching to their precious magic products, considering it an insult to their pride. But Logan was confident this strategy would work. From the conversation outside and based on, You need this urgently, don't you? Not particularly urgent. I just want to finish the construction county. Money is no concern. You are indeed generous. After all, employing peasants in your territory would suffice. But this was the common belief among Grandia's nobility at the time. Spending a lot on territorial development was an option chosen only in urgent cases. Otherwise, the cheap solution was to grind the peasants of the territory. That's why the empire easily conquered us. Every law of the empire is intended for the people's welfare. To promote the welfare of the people is to serve the nation. Ensuring the people's prosperity is the foundation for strengthening the nation. These were the opening phrases of the imperial laws, later proclaimed by the Emperor of Ares Empire. Logan, in his previous life, was also shocked by these words. At that time, they were notions he had never considered. What significance was there in treating peasants well, just to boost one's reputation within the territory? At least, that's what I thought. But this notion vanished in an instant when faced with the Empire's war. When Grandia's military forces crumbled, its soldiers were quick to flee. In contrast, Imperial troops fought to hinder the enemy's advance, even after a defeat. This difference in mindset always led to outcomes far exceeding the direct difference in military strength. And only after everything ended did he realize that this stemmed from how the monarch treated the people. Many other nobles likely came to the same realization. The country becomes stronger when its people are prosperous. This simple truth dawned on them only after the kingdom had fallen. It was necessary now to cater to their perspective. If the price doesn't suit me, I might just take longer to mobilize the peasant workforce and handle it that way. Logan had no intention of forced peasant labor without proper compensation, but others couldn't know his thoughts. Haha, I see. Naturally, but a discount from the mage tower. Only a baffled voice and hollow laughter followed. Unable to make a decision, they kept looking for a sign, so Logan decided to prod them further. Is it too much? Then I'll just consult the Royal Mage Tower. Wait, please, just a moment. Although not translated into action, there was almost a desperate momentum, as if clinging to the hem of a robe. The anxious licking of lips made the impression look even more sinister. Added to that was Logan's internal encouragement. You caught a clue leading to the path of the extraordinary? You can't give up, can you? A crossroads leading to the arrival of a top-tier knight. A crossroads leading a fifth circle mage to become a sixth circle mage. To most people, the warning of causing frustration was symbolized by the wall of magic, dividing the extraordinary from the ordinary. And those who most wanted to overcome that wall were not those who couldn't even approach it, but rather those who had reached the level of starting to peek beyond it. Hehe, scrolls have their regulations, but cough. I guess there's no other way. In the end, the master of the Mage Tower surrendered to desire and broke his pride. Regressor of the Fallen Family. Chapter 41. What did you say? The threatening glare from Elder Clayton of the Earth Tower caused the subordinate mage, who came to deliver the order, to shrink even further. All 10 disciples under Grek are. Ah, I'm just the messenger, Elder. His fierce look made it so only his disciples could smile back at him in the tower, and Clayton, who usually tried to smile as much as possible, barely managed to contain the surge of killing intent at the subordinate mage's reaction. Yeah, I know. I'm aware. The Tower Master, this guy, until the very end. It wasn't the fault of the guy delivering the message. The bad one had to be the Tower Master. Clayton sighed deeply and forced his anger down. To where? For how long? He asked, hoping that the Tower Master at least had a shred of conscience. It's the McLean territory in the southwest countryside. The construction period is half a year. What? Despite the calm tone, the mana and killing intent that rapidly filled the room was overwhelming. Elder Clayton's impassive face did not show it, but the strength of the anger within him was palpable, and the subordinate mage clutched his chest. Cough, Elder? This is rather regrettable. Once again, Clayton barely suppressed his anger and allowed the subordinate mage to regain his breath. The mage had barely come to his senses before Clayton approached with a grim face and asked, So is that absurd? No? Is that order truly without falsehood? Yes, of course. I see. Another deep breath from Clayton, and the killing intent soared once more, causing the innocent subordinate mage's complexion to change constantly. All right, you may go now. Thank you, clang. The mage dashed out of the room, making a ruckus, with Clayton's menacing gaze following him. Of course, the anger wasn't directed at the mage, but rather the true instigator of the order. McLean? A territory I've never heard of, and for as long as half a year? So far it had been continuous but short-term stints to the outskirts of Grandia. And just when he thought those stints were getting slightly longer, now it seemed they were being sent externally for good. All were 20-somethings, at an age ripe for development, and his disciples were instead stuck doing labor without training. Ledios, Tower Master of the Earth Tower, you really want to do this? Everything started after he reached the 5th circle and became an elder a year ago. Only 50 years old and already at the 5th circle. Although his age didn't quite fit the term elder, the rules didn't forbid him from becoming one. The disciples of his competitors, who vied for the position of Tower Master in the previous generation, must have been displeased with his position being threatened. Yes, he could understand that much. Clayton comprehended up to there. But to touch my disciples, even if not me, to this extent? He had tried to be patient, but this was too much. His disciples couldn't even train or research, nor find time to rest, due to all the field work being pushed onto them by the Tower Master. And now, they had just returned this morning, only to be assigned another such long-distance assignment straight away. It's time to sort this out once and for all. Elder Clayton of the Earth Tower kicked the room door and left with a look of fury. These are? Logan glanced at the Tower Master with a grim look, and the Tower Master nodded with a smile. Yes, these are the young men who will assist the young lord for half a year. Grek, aren't you their representative? Greet him. This is Logan McLean, the young lord. You'll be working for him for the next 6 months. I am Grek, a third circle mage. Please take good care of me. Grek, who looked like he could be in his 30s, stepped forward to represent the 10 mages, and let out a sigh with a brief greeting. More than anything, what caught the eye were the deep shadows under his eyes and his pale complexion. Not only him, but the others behind him looked equally worn. I am Logan McLean. After exchanging names and sending the young mages off for a moment, Logan spoke with a cringed face. They look like they're about to collapse any moment, Tower Master. Are these really the right people? They might look tired, but they are our most experienced young talent in construction. They will fulfill their roles. Perhaps they are tired, but these friends are our tower's specialists in construction. Specialists in construction. Even Logan, who was not a mage, knew that no mage would be happy to hear that. It was a statement no different from belittling one's own disciples. Recalling the gloomy faces of the young mages he just saw, Logan looked at the Tower Master skeptically, but there was no flicker of emotion on the Tower Master's face. They certainly seemed competent. Instead, the compliment seemed to harden the Tower Master's expression even more. Ha ha ha. Yes, they are indeed competent. Competent indeed. Listening to the Tower Master's soulless praise, Logan fell into deep thought. The deal itself isn't bad, but a monthly 1.2 million gold, 120 collapsed scrolls, and the support of 10 mages. After a 3-hour argument, that figure was agreed upon, while Ledios's face looked almost cramped. He had basically slashed the cost of mage support. From Logan's perspective, it was a satisfying deal, but he was somewhat uneasy, because the exhausted mages seemed more capable than he anticipated. His senses perceived the level of these mages as almost young mages at the 3rd circle master level, and 9 2nd circle experts and masters. Moreover, all in their 20s, they were talents who would be coveted in any tower. To let such people go for a fraction of their worth, and attract antipathy in doing so? Understandably, he couldn't help but feel that there was another hidden motive. Here, it's specified in the contract. Bang. Perhaps sensing his hesitation, the Tower Master quickly pushed the contract, freshly sealed with his stamp. Ink not even dry, the conditions agreed upon, and the Tower Master's stamp were already there. As if to say, you wouldn't refuse this, would you? Finding the gesture increasingly suspicious, Logan hesitated. Why are the terms so favorable? As Logan furrowed his brow, lost in thought, a harsh voice accompanied by a loud bang at the door cut through the air. Tower Master, let's have a word. The cool voice was accompanied by a fierce face with piercing eyes and a wild beard. Accompanied by a scar that ran from his right forehead to above his left lip, he looked more like a veteran mercenary or an assassin than a mage. Moreover, his massive physique hid beneath his robe, radiating a certainty of a solid, muscular build. At first glance, he seemed better suited to armor than a robe. Clayton? Ledios's voice revealed slight alarm, and behind the forcefully opened door, young mages, attempting to restrain him, appeared. Master! Master, you don't have to do this! The Tower Master's spacious room was suddenly as noisy as a marketplace, and Logan gazed surprisingly at the newly arrived mage. 5th circle! Logan's senses clearly felt the 5 earth-toned circles resting in the man's heart. Ledios's face grimaced as the presence behind him flinched, not only due to the appearance of a serial killer, but the Tower Master's expression hardly changed. Elder Clayton, we have a guest. We'll talk after the matter is finished. That matter is about my disciples. I must discuss it now. Elder Clayton, do you really want to embarrass yourself in front of a guest? How embarrassing, Tower Master. You're presenting the young people who are the future of the tower as mere laborers. Enough. Letios's face blushed with Clayton's sharp retort. However, after looking at Logan once over, he sighed deeply and continued, "Everything is for the tower's benefit. Are there others who work as well as your disciples?" "That's exactly my question. Why only make my disciples work so hard? Especially today, when they just got back." The harsh gaze flew towards him, but Letios maintained an impassive face. "Ah, for the sake of the tower, I tell you. It is said that youthful hardships are even sought after. It's all for their good. So you want to torture my disciples because you can't order me an elder around? Did you think I would stand by?" As the unexpected quarrel stretched on, Logan quietly derived the necessary information from their conversation. This was it. Logan realized why such a favorable contract was so easily penned. It was the internal conflict of the tower that became a stroke of luck for him. "If you don't like the Tower Master's orders, you and your disciples are free to leave now." Ha! Is that supposed to be a serious statement? As Clayton's anger rose and mana visibly surged, the Tower Master's mana also started exploding in response. Vroom. The same earthy tones, yet entirely different auras of mana clashed, shaking the entire room. Wow! The sight of a confrontation between high-level mages promised to be interesting, but that's not the issue now. With a clearer picture of their situation, Logan's unease faded. And what needed to be done? He quickly took out his identification badge and stamped it at the bottom of the contract. Bam! Now, with this, the contract is established. The 10 standing there, follow me. The poised voice cut through the tense atmosphere, drawing everyone's eyes towards Logan. "Ah, you two. Well, do as you please. The contract is still valid even with a new Tower Master, right?" But on Logan's face holding up the contract, there was only a smile. The two opposing mages looked flabbergasted at Logan. Yet, their responses were starkly different. Cough. "I'm sorry you had to see such an ugly sight. Very well. The scrolls will be sent as soon as they are ready. Tower Master." "I haven't finished talking. Elder Clayton, are you really going to resort to force in front of an official contract of the Earth Tower? Remember your status." Interrupted by Roamrun's words, Clayton glared at him with eyes that could spit fire, but the words were not incorrect. Clayton's face trembled with unresolved anger, but he reluctantly retracted his gaze and stepped back. Watching him, both the Tower Master and Roamrun smiled, but Clayton uttered an unexpected declaration. "Fine, then I will follow my disciples." Clayton, an elder intending to follow a construction site and neglect the tower's dignity. Dignity of the tower comes after my disciples, my kids, who can't even rest because of some ruthless scoundrels. I will go with them to expedite the work so they can rest. Truly willful, if that's how you insist. Well, do as you please. A fifth circle mage in construction. The cold exchange between the Tower Master and the Elder seemed to conclude there, but there remained a crucial issue. Both of you? I have no intention to employ a fifth circle mage." With Logan's words, the mage's gazes turned back to him. Why would a construction project need a fifth circle mage? It's a waste of money. The labor costs of a mage above the fifth circle were astronomical. There were terrifying rumors about a starting price of 1 million gold, and Logan had no intention of such wasteful spending. Absolutely not. As Logan prepared to decisively cut off any objection, something unexpected happened. "I simply intend to help with my disciples' work. I do not plan to take any money for it. My goal is to facilitate the quick completion of the work." Hearing those blissful words like music from heaven, Logan immediately bowed at a 90-degree angle. "We will serve you in the best way, Elder. How would you like your carriage to be prepared?" The sudden shift in demeanor even caused Clayton's grim face to briefly blank in surprise. "A simple one would suffice, my lord. I will prepare it so that you can travel comfortably." Who was the employer, and who was the laborer? While everyone gazed in bewilderment, Logan simply beamed. Aha! Top-notch staff for free. With a fifth circle mage, to the extent that the originally intended collapse scrolls were virtually unnecessary. Therefore, Logan could readily nod to Clayton's next words. Just give us one more day. My disciples need to rest up before we depart. Of course. I also have things to settle. The contract with the tower was a jackpot, and Logan's smile showed no signs of fading. Logan had prepared 3 carriages for Clayton and his disciples. These were 6-seater carriages, spacious enough to accommodate several people comfortably, affording the room for everyone to travel divided if needed. Moreover, he had invested a hefty 5,000 gold to hire experienced coachmen from the Grandia Transport Guild and prepared provisions and tents necessary for camping out. It was a showcase of Logan's care towards the magicians, with the setup indicating his intent to travel continuously, except for the essential breaks for eating and sleeping. And in this luxurious setting, the gruff-looking Clayton was continuously nagging his disciples to train since the conditions are comfortable. From Logan's perspective, it seemed like senseless coercion, but the disciples accepted Clayton's orders with smiles. They're like underlings flattering a murderous leader to survive. Although it appeared precisely so, genuine sincerity was felt in the smiles of those disciples. Logan shook his head after a brief moment of observation. It's not for me to know. I need to focus on my affairs. The campfire flickered. Watching the fire burn, Logan cast aside his stray thoughts and once again contemplated the image of the sword sage in his mind. More precisely, the image of his swordplay. Though he had occasionally thought about it while writing his swordplay manual, the image now came to him more clearly than before. The calm, starry night, as he prepared to camp out, was the best time for concentration, to stimulate such swordplay here. That day, the sword sage had shown Logan more than just the overbearing sword technique. Golden light erupted from Logan's sword, which he held loosely, forming a tangible blade. The golden blade, a fusion of external momentum and force, though blurry, had a definite form. There were no more irregular flashes of golden light, a blade made tangible by force. If the sword sage had seen this, he would have been extremely surprised. Aura is the transformation of concentrated, compressed force into a new power. Although the technique shown by the sword sage was just a weakened stage of this aura, Logan was not supposed to be able to imitate that technique at his level. But now, with the evolved power of force, he had managed to do so with his still insufficient skills. Crackle, sizzle. Of course, the shape could not be maintained for long, but the mere fact of its existence was already a tremendous achievement. I've done it. He couldn't openly express his joy, considering those around him, but his fists clenched out of happiness. He had managed to briefly imitate the Force Blade, reputed to only be achievable by the topmost knights. Furthermore, whoosh, the amplifier, focus, dispersal. The force emanating from the sword teased the flames of the campfire, coiling into a round shape, stretching out and demanding various changes. The pressure of the momentum, fundamental to the feeling of oppression. This seemed to be truly useful, just as the sword sage had claimed. Unlike the secret techniques of the divine sword, it didn't consume much energy. It looks like I could use this in real combat. Overbearing sword. Logan had focused on this vision for days, setting aside his complicated thoughts about the future. Because of this focus, his achievement came quickly, and he felt an immediate urge to test it. I'm not a child. It was a childish eagerness to swing the new weapon in his hand. Recently, he felt his mentality rejuvenating as much as his physically younger body. Well, it can't be helped. The idea of an unshakable mind despite changes in situation or environment was something only the most powerful or superhumans would claim proverbially. The cheers immediately after the war were gone, but at the mere sight of him, no residents were shaking in fear or running away from a distance, which was enough for Logan to distinctly sense his improved reputation. However, what worried him was that many of those who greeted him didn't seem to be in good shape. Mommy, I'm hungry. Wait a bit. Mommy will go to the fields and bring back some potatoes. Daddy? Daddy. Sobs. Daddy said he would come once after 100 nights, right? Son, How many nights have you slept? I don't know. I hate Daddy. I'm hungry. The gaunt figures of the mother and child, and the plaintive whining of the child, weighed heavily on Logan's heart. The wounds of war had not yet healed, and now they were compounded by destitution. The fleeting glance of a worried woman bowing as he passed, and the puzzled look on a child's face left a heavy burden in Logan's heart. As expected, Logan felt his expression harden. Lowering the tax rate, considering the barren McLean estate, was one thing, but even the 30% tax rate inevitably made the already difficult situation of the residents harder. The timing as the most food-scarce period became apparent to him. That's why he brought measures to solve these problems fundamentally. But there were still many obstacles to overcome. Will Father agree? He was confident in his solution. After all, in his past life, he had seen the results that it produced on several occasions. However, presenting that idea as is wasn't possible, so convincing others, including his father, was the issue. I need to mobilize the residents to work on the construction. While contemplating as he entered the castle, he unexpectedly encountered another person he needed to convince. Splendidly enjoyed your time away, young lord. I've had quite a rough time myself. Rick, still with wads of cotton in his nose, greeted with a haggard face and a tone that almost sounded like provocation. Ha ha ha. Rick, you guy. Yeah, I'm back? These people behind me are. This stench doesn't leave my body. The maids run away, holding their noses at my sight. Young lord, I think I'll never be able to marry because of this. The fiery look in Rick's eyes showed that he didn't care what Logan was saying. He kept pouring out his grievances. Logan sweated coldly upon hearing Rick's almost monologue filled with sharp sincerity. How will you compensate for this? Ever since that Karok. Logan swiftly covered Rick's mouth and whispered in his ear, an addition of 50 gold per week. Deal? Headshake, eyes wide. 100 gold more. That's the last offer. Only then did Rick quietly close his mouth. Logan breathed a sigh of relief and removed his hand from Rick's mouth. Tui, spit. The attitude of the young man, though roguish and still filled with resentment, somehow brought a smile to Logan's face. Rick, first guide our guests. I shall see my father and organize accommodation. After that, we'll decide where you'll be staying. Yes, yes. I must follow orders, of course. Some enjoy themselves freely while others endure a foul-smelling place. Be sensible. I won't tolerate more. Kahem. Dear guests, please follow me. I will guide you. Amused by the sudden shift in the fellow's demeanor, Logan felt the presence of home in an unexpectedly peculiar way. His countier concerns suddenly seemed trivial. Yes. When did I ever persuade with logic? If it doesn't work, I'll force it. With lighter spirits and a smile, Logan turned and looked back. Master Clayton, please wait here for a moment. After seeing my father, I will arrange your accommodations. Shouldn't we accompany you, considering the significant expenses involved in the task? No, you are still my guest for the time being. I will inform you after my return. Leaving the perplexed company of magicians behind, Logan headed inside the castle with a somewhat lighter gait. Regressor of the Fallen Family. Chapter 43. Yes, visiting the capital has been quite enlightening. Good, then that settles it. Anything else you wish to discuss? Even in that brief exchange, Logan could sense that his father's perception of him had changed significantly. Trust. It meant his father didn't question or scrutinize him. But for the sake of the future, he still had to speak his mind. Before getting to the main point, Logan swallowed down his dry saliva. I did some business in the capital and earned a bit of money. Revenue should keep coming in for a while. Money? No, before that. Business? What kind of business? The medicine I gave you as a gift, Father. I started trading with it. Luckily, it went well, so I made some money. What did you say? His father's initially casual expression suddenly became rigid. Then, as if realizing the full implication, his face turned beet red. You're telling me you went to the capital to sell libido enhancers? His voice, startled and flustered, trembled ever so slightly. Don't tell me. You had a representative? I sold it directly to the nobles. It had to be me who did it for a high price. You, yourself sold it? Yes. While revealing you're a McLean? Yes. Whom, huh? Gring. Who? Patrick's shock quickly gave way to deep sighs and groans. I have no face to see our ancestors. Through the hands covering his face came his muffled groans. When he looked up at Logan again, Logan braced himself for a blast of fury. Sigh, Logan, I've decided not to interfere in your actions, but, contrary to his expectations, a sincere and grave voice followed his father's deep sigh. The next time you do something, could you at least consider the honor and dignity of the family to some degree? Despite the complicated look his father gave him, Logan wore a smile. I thought I'd have to convince him with a whole spiel. It seemed that his reputation had improved more than he guessed. This might make things easier. Thus, Logan could answer boldly. Yes. Are you thinking before answering? Of course. Cring. Logan's too readily given answer didn't instill much confidence, and Patrick, out of words again, buried his face in his hands. But Logan was earnest and resolute in his heart. He believed he was already acting with maximum consideration for the family's honor and dignity. It was just that in his mind, honor and dignity came after survival and profit. Patrick would have rapped his head again if he knew, and Logan barely concealed a smirk. After causing such a headache, it was time to share some good news. Actually, I happened to meet a sword sage in the capital, and it's proved to be a fortuitous connection. Fortunately, this time Logan's news received an immediate reaction as anticipated. A sword sage? You mean Duke Felix Esperanza? Patrick's eyes sparkled with sudden interest, as if all his concerns had vanished. Yes. How did you meet him? I sold him the medicine, and it turns out that he was quite. What? As if something burst inside him, Patrick abruptly shouted out with flushed cheeks. His son had not only sold libido enhancers under the family name, but he also peddled them to the most respected sword hero of the kingdom. For Patrick, it was an unimaginable blow to his dignity. How could you smear so much filth on the face of our family? That's why I acquired quite a formidable intermediate-grade sword skill. What? Caught between anger and bewilderment, Patrick's eyes fixed on a book that Logan had pulled out. Iron Blood Sword. It's a proper intermediate-grade sword technique, endorsed by the sword sage himself. Plus, it includes a secret technique that's quite a trick. Patrick darted in front of Logan like a flash of lightning. Is this for real? How? No, that's not the question. Let me see it first. Patrick had longed for a proper force sword technique, or intermediate-grade swordsmanship, all his life. He had been considering the limitations of his swordsmanship as a possible reason for his lack of progress for over a decade. To him, an intermediate-grade swordplay manual, endorsed by a sword sage, was like rain after a long drought. Whoosh, whoosh. That's right. If I do this, As Patrick flipped through the pages quickly, his eyes devoured every word as if ready to draw his sword there and then. Seeing this, Logan quickly brought up his prepared suggestion. This should be a significant help to the family, don't you think? At that moment, Patrick looked at Logan with a vacant expression. It's genuine indeed, and it seems to be among the better intermediate-grade techniques. How can we ever repay the sword sage's kindness? No, first, Logan, you've done well. Really well. Where had the fiery anger gone? Patrick grinned even brighter than when they had resolved the family's debt and patted Logan's shoulder. Riding that enthusiasm, Logan brought the conversation back on track. Would this be enough to train our knights with? Of course, if they master it properly, our knight's power could increase by at least 30%. You can count on that. Good to hear, so I'll propose. Yes, but first I must master this myself. What? No, I intend to. Before Logan could say more, Patrick, seemingly thrilled, became absorbed in the book again. This is really... It's not the time for me to be here. Logan! Yes? I must concentrate on learning this as fast as I can, so please I'll leave things to you for a while. What do you mean? Caught up in the whirlwind of events, Logan felt confused. Thud. Patrick placed a heavy, fist-sized object on the desk. Here. This is the seal of the head. What? Assist Dwayne with household matters for the time being? I will concentrate on this sword technique. What? That's not what I planned. Discuss it with Dwayne and resolve it well. Logan, I truly appreciate it. Ah, but father, I have something to tell you. Bang. The study's door slammed shut as Patrick vanished like the wind. Logan's voice only bounced off an invisible wall. What just happened? Patrick's impassioned reaction trampled over all of Logan's expectations. On the desk, a large seal lay forlorn, with its blazing flame design, the McLean family's insignia, appearing particularly pathetic that day. I didn't even get to mention the main topic. The frustration was palpable, but another thought offered some consolation. It's as if I have the right to do it now, after all. Thinking that way, the flaming insignia in his hand suddenly seemed friendlier. All right. I'll set it all in motion before Father finishes his training. While Logan was affirming himself with a murmur, suddenly, the door burst open. Sir, I heard you've arrived. You're here. Dwayne rushed in eagerly, greeting him with unusual fervor. Welcome back. Good to see you. After a brief formal greeting, Dwayne wasted no time getting to the point. I've heard about what you did in the capital. Please contribute some money to the family funds. It's urgent. The desperate plea sounded almost pathetic. What's so urgent? Aren't there funds from the war? That money is barely enough to sustain 2 castles, and this year's harvest is expected to plummet. It looks like the taxes will be in deficit. The depleted labor force due to war casualties in Teslan's castle, the already poor financial situation of McLean Castle, the abruptly halted support from Kairos, along with a litany of other issues that Dwayne rattled on about, all led to one conclusion. Please, give us money. Money. I know you've made a fortune. Don't look away. However, I'm sorry. Sorry? Why are you apologizing? No, you shouldn't be sorry. What are you saying? Instead of apologizing, just give us money. Money. I spent it all. What? Hey, this isn't funny. You made millions of gold, didn't you? What have you done in such a short time to spend it all? The territory's really in trouble. This isn't a time for jokes. It's not a joke. Come on, this isn't funny. Seriously, it's not. I've really spent it all. Dwayne stared into Logan's eyes momentarily, then collapsed limply to the floor. What? What did you spend it on? On 20 million on magic scrolls and mages, bought food, and various materials for construction, so there's nothing left. Indeed, after those purchases, nearly 2 million gold was left, but the minimal expenditure for the next 6 months was already estimated at 2.2 million gold. Considering the possible sales decline of the Impo Rick, he could not spend the remaining money. And there was another reason. 20 million gold? For magic scrolls? What on earth are you planning to use them for? Those bulging eyes somehow seemed amusing to tease. Collapse. I plan to take on a major project. Lots of territory people will have to be mobilized too. How many? Just about how many people? Let's see. At least a few thousand? A few thousand? Have you lost your mind? Now is not the time for that. I know it's harvest season, my man. Logan held back the laughter, trying to escape. What project are you planning? No matter what it is, this is not the time for construction. The head will never allow it. Just get a refund. Nope. Besides, I'm the head now. Logan teasingly waved the fiery seal in front of Dwayne's eyes. This seal? Where is the head? Training. This man again. Dwayne jumped up as if he had never been disheartened. Head of the house! A boar with flames in its eyes went charging back into the manor. Ochieso, there's nothing more important than this right now. Sort out the rest through discussion. Head of the house? Head. Hey, man. Charging into the training hall, Dwayne, who went in full of vigor, ended up only getting rebuked by Patrick, who had just begun to concentrate. The dejected Dwayne looked at Logan with a face full of resentment, but Logan stood his ground. Do you really have to do this? It's necessary. It's the peak season when the territorials have to work. What on earth are you trying to build during this time? Even in this barren territory, there were crops to be harvested. Predictably, the yield was small, but the people managed to survive by hunting or gathering herbs. And summer this season offered nature's most bountiful harvest. In other words, it was the busiest time for the territorials. The mood's already sour post-war. It could lead to a disaster. Please rethink this, please. Don't worry, no one's working for free. What are you planning to do? Feed them. There are a lot of starving people in our territory, aren't there? Yes? I'll distribute food. Provide enough for those who are starving, and even more for those who will contribute to the construction work. That idealistic talk made Dwayne's expression sour. If you do that, within a month you won't even have soup to eat. It's fine. I have some. What do you mean, it's fine? We have nothing. Don't you get it? You didn't really listen to me, Countier, did you? I said I bought food, didn't I? Yes. But Countier, you said magical scrolls for construction. Tsk, tsk. You need to listen properly when someone's talking. I said I have that and food. Does that settle it? Even if you bought a little food, distributing it to the territorials would. 1 million gold. What? Every month, until next year this time. Dwayne stared at Logan with a dumbfounded expression for a moment, then started fiddling with his ears. Cough. I've been working so hard lately I must be hearing things. Sir, what did you say again? I'll spend 1 million gold every month for a year to buy food and distribute it among the territorials. Goodness. It wasn't a hallucination. Sir? Yes, I will. Did you eat something wrong? Dwayne's incredulous gaze made Logan smirk wryly. This is the natural reaction, I guess. So far, Logan hadn't shown any concern for the living conditions of the territorials. Even though his reputation might have improved after becoming a war hero, it was unlikely anyone would expect such a change in his worldview. But for the sake of the future, this was a job that needed to be done right away. I'm fine. Is that enough? There are 30,000 in McLean Castle and 50,000 in Teslon Castle. We may not be able to feed everyone lavishly, but it should be enough for modest provision. If we minimize it and give twice as much to those involved in the construction, well, it should be sufficiently feasible. But sir, do you really need to do this? What? Opposing the construction aside, why do you want to spend that money on food for the territorials? You don't have to. They will manage. Rather, use the money for something else. There are so many other places that need it. Right. Everyone still thinks that way. It wasn't that Dwayne lacked compassion. It was just the accepted standard, a misguided belief that skimmed the territorials' vitality while keeping them barely afloat to pay taxes. We need to correct this mistaken notion. So Logan had to set things straight. It's my money anyway. What's the problem with spending it as I please? Sir, I have the authority as the acting lord, and the source of funds is also my money. There's no reason to object, right? Logan's argument was undeniably sound, and as Dwayne tried to furiously come up with a rebuttal, he eventually collapsed with a grimace. Sigh. The head will oppose it. He's not here now. If we must do it, making sure no one dies of hunger would be best. No, that's not good enough. This is all ultimately for the welfare of the family. Therefore, it was imperative to succeed. Absolutely. Logan's firm expression left Dwayne speechless in the end. Regressor of the Fallen Family. Chapter 44. You're planning to drill through a mountain and bring in river water by constructing some kind of gate? Ha 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 ha. The dwarves and mages were incredulously responding, as if to say, "Are you out of your mind?" Logan just chuckled confidently, replying, "It's entirely possible. So, I would like you to carry it out as planned." Hammer and Clayton's skepticism wasn't unfounded. The McLean territory bordered the southern mountain range, a place so vast that no one claimed to have seen its end. To the north, relatively shallow hills formed a series of undulations blocking the Luther River from flowing southward. There were no rivers nearby heading east or west, and as a result, the land around the castle was barren waste enveloped by wilderness. Logan's plan was to create a massive tunnel through the northern hills to draw water from the river. To the people of this era, it sounded more plausible to push the mountain over than to drill through it. Regardless, Logan continued his explanation unwaveringly. We'll create a tunnel, 30 meters in diameter, directly connecting to the Luther River, which will be used as a sluice. It's a civil engineering method used in the Western continent. They call them dams. Although small dams were indeed being used in some parts of the Western continent at the time, precise trends of flood control would only become widespread in the Empire 20 years later. The plan was based on a dam he saw at a fortress in the Northern Empire, which used the mountain itself as a natural embankment, crafting sluices through tunnels. I may not know the detailed principles of construction, but Logan had dwarves and mages to offset his lack of knowledge. In the future, the Empire would demonstrate incredible feats, such as diverting the course of a mighty river within a few months for massive construction projects. But for now, McLean didn't need such grand undertakings. Just a portion of the Luther River's flow will suffice. With that, it would be possible to convert the western wastelands of McLean Castle into fertile plains for agriculture. Knowing full well that it was no easy task, Logan had planned around the use of a large number of magical scrolls and mages, including mobilizing the territory's residents for the construction. Ha ha. Even after the explanation, Clayton remained skeptical, but Hammer's demeanor differed. We must choose the location carefully. The condition of the ground is critical. We also need to consider the water level and waterways. To prevent the tunnel from collapsing, we'll need to construct an arched structure and get assistance from mages. As the perplexed dwarf mumbled, Clayton looked at Hammer with a stupefied gaze, and Logan was brightened. That means it's possible? Eh? Ah, ha. What did I just say? Ha ha ha. Lately I've been saying nonsense without realizing. It sounded plausible even for someone like me who doesn't know much about construction work. Ha ha ha. I think my mind's gone funny from staying in mines too long, master. Ah ha ha ha. Hammer tried to cover up with an awkward laugh, but Logan had already grabbed his hand eagerly. See, I knew it was possible. I've seen much bigger things than this. Yes? Hammer responded with a look that read, What are you talking about? But Logan already seemed too far gone to hear it. If humans can make it dozens of times larger, why can't dwarves, right? Truth be told, if Hammer said it couldn't be done, Logan was prepared to push over a small mountain and carve out a channel himself. It would take significantly more time, but it was a definitive method that even an uninformed outsider could accomplish. Although, it would have cost much more. He probably would have been better off using that money to buy 100 years' worth of food. That is if you didn't consider the need to prepare for war. Regardless, Logan's confident demeanor forced Hammer's complexion to grow increasingly ashen, but pride stumbled over reason as he blurted out, It would require a tremendous amount of manpower and money. Drilling through a mountain isn't as easy as. Before his rational mind could regain control, it was too late. We have magical scrolls and mages. That's not something a few scrolls can handle. We have 120 each month. What? There are 120 fourth circle collapse scrolls every month. That's enough to use 4 a day without rest. Plus, we also have Lord Clayton here, a fifth circle mage. Isn't that sufficient? With that, the last desperate defiance of logic was futilely crushed. Come on, now we have to find a mountain suitable for drilling that tunnel. The easiest place we can start. There was still time before the arrival of the supplies and scrolls. If they prepared thoroughly in the meantime, there would be no issue. Am I supposed to find the place too? Logan was not privy to that knowledge either. Then who will? Huh? With Logan's natural retort, Hammer slumped down powerlessly on the spot. 2 weeks later, Really here? Is this the right place? Logan asked wearily, on the ridge of the second lowest mountain amongst the northern hills of McLean. Not only was he forced to ride a pony due to his stature, but his spirit seemed greatly diminished by the sheer amount of work. Over the past fortnight, Logan had personally been mounting Hammer on a horse and traveling around. To visualize the dam he remembered from the future and apply the dwarf's geological capabilities, it was an unavoidable decision. And now he was feeling the strain of it all. Ugh, yes, the ground and geological conditions are even, and the land is low. Plus, it's close to the Luther River, making it a good place to dig a waterway. Fortunately, Hammer finally nodded. Despite Hammer's expression being one of utter exhaustion, his face seemed to relax a bit. But then again, all right, let's head back and prepare for the construction. Let's rest a bit, human. To the excessively demanding master, Hammer's complexions once again turned steely and deathly. However, Logan, ignoring his weary dwarf, lifted him back onto the horse with an indifferent expression. Lucky it's low ground with a trail already. It should make it easier to drill the tunnel. That means the ground is harder. Don't speak so loosely if you're not going to do it yourself. Ignoring the tired dwarf's protests with a refreshed look, Logan drove the horse back towards the castle. 3 days later, at dawn, those obligated for conscription were summoned. At McLean Castle's outer west gate, at Teslin Castle's outer east gate. Those without a valid excuse for noncompliance. The sudden proclamation caused an uproar amongst the denizens of both territories. It's finally. All nobles are the same. The citizens of Teslin Castle, which could be considered a conquered land, had a sense of impending doom. They began to dread the notion that the conqueror was starting to plunder. But the mood at McLean Castle, the true realm of the conqueror, was even worse. If I'm sent to compulsory labor, my children will starve to death. Please stop it. Lord, barely surviving war. Now our Lord wants to kill us. Ah, my goodness. Should we just run away? Is there a place nearby to live? Either die trying to flee, labor to death, or starve. Is this the choice we're being given? Amidst this dire situation, with no real options left, they faced a choice of how they wished to die. The residents, who had lived passively all their lives, were forced to obey their ruler's command, filled with desperate imaginings, but with no other alternatives. 3 days later, at the castle gates, see if there's a chance to escape or maybe purposely hurt ourselves to get out of work. Some of the gathered residents were looking around anxiously, trying to find a way out. I can barely keep my children fed with only watery porridge, let alone have the strength for labor. Amidst their fear and desperation, cries and pleas erupted from the crowd. Gathered nearly 4,000 strong, why not just revolt? Even if the knights, or rather bastards, barrage in. Anyway, we're all done for, right? Yeah, might as well take a stand now. The turbulent air grew thicker, and the weak-willed subject's eyes began to fill with madness. Seeing the ominous atmosphere among the residents gathered outside McLean Castle, Dwayne sighed atop the ramparts. Was it necessary to issue a conscription order? You could have just offered to share the food. If it had been that simple, less than half of them would have shown up. What? They wouldn't have believed us. Not in us. Dwayne couldn't understand Logan's bitter smile and response. Really? I don't mean to boast, but our territory has always prided itself on fair and sound administration. But this isn't an issue of doing well or poorly. Logan knew very well that his father had never exploited the people of the territory for selfish or unfair reasons. The McLean family had fallen from grace due to the atrocious deeds of an ancestor 4 generations back. Even though they were a Count family at the time, the Count McLean of 4 generations ago caused the territory to suffer greatly by squeezing the people for a war effort, only to be betrayed and defeated. The following Count McLean desperately attempted to redeem their past by becoming even more ruthless, but ultimately he failed, and the rest of the retainers turned their backs on him. That was the reason the direct McLean line ended up settling in what is now McLean Castle, sometimes used only as a fortress. That's why Patrick McLean, the current head of the family, had no interest in repeating the mistakes of his predecessors, and had yet to do so. Logan was certain of that. The issue is more fundamental. What is it? We're nobles. But Logan, in his previous life as a mercenary who spent a long time among the commoners, understood their lives. Nobles regarded their subjects as property, and those who prided themselves as sensible nobles contended that it was their duty to protect their subjects, believing themselves to be fulfilling that duty suitably, like my father. However, for the commoners, a good noble was just one who took a little less from them, and a bad noble took more. Dwayne couldn't grasp this distinction. What does that have to do with anything? In this barren land, I am confident in our best policies. That couldn't be. Feeling his life's work being invalidated, Dwayne couldn't help but become angry. Is the well-being of the territory residents foremost in Father's mind? It isn't. It's the Knights. That's because, Lord. In this barren land, a slightly better policy means it's just slightly less tough. Unable to refute the undeniable truth, Dwayne was silenced. Patrick McLean was a man who thought in terms of knights when it came to the strength of the territory. That's why, even when budgets were tight, he maintained a knight order of over 50 knights. Their salaries alone accounted for over 1.5 million gold each year. Over half of the territory's budget was spent on the wages of the knights. The bitter realization was that even so, the McLean Knights' salaries were still below the average of other territories, so the knights couldn't be blamed. As the treasurer, and knowing better than anyone that without the support from Kairos, the territory would have already gone bankrupt, Dwayne could no longer question Logan's explanations. So we have to force them together and show them, make them believe. Time's up. Just keep watching. As Logan spoke, Dwayne turned his gaze down from the ramparts. Rumble. Rumble. The gates are opening! You all know, right? Stick together to live, scatter to die. In times like these, conscripts of what? All right, everyone brace yourselves. Get your strength up. The villagers, no matter how untrained, were filled with a sense of resolve, born from hunger and the fear of death. As they patted each other on the back, watching the gates, with eyes beginning to gleam with ferocity, rumble, rumble, boom. The gates opened, and a procession of countless carts appeared. Charge! Hurry up! The clamor of armored knights directing the procession could be heard. The remarkable length of the caravan, seemingly stemming from the outer east gate to within, was approaching the gates without end. What are all those? Looks like grain? The presence of the unfamiliar convoy made the gathered residents' murmurings grow louder. Where are those going? They're coming this way? Their astonishment was palpable, and the murderous intent that had been surging faded away. Halt! All right, get the distribution ready. As the wagon train halted, sack after sack of grain was delivered, carried by unfamiliar hands, and becoming a mountain in front of the residents. What's that? Are they giving it to us? Stop dreaming. What noble would? But why now? Wah, who knows? As uncertainty began to permeate the crowd, hope hesitantly started to take root. When tables set up and the grain piled behind them, that hope neared affirmation. Soon, one of the knights commanding the procession bellowed with a thunderous voice. This decree by His Grace Logan is to provide a month's worth of grain to the family of each conscript. The words created a brief silence, but it was soon broken by an uproar even greater than before. What did he just say? They're distributing grain? Could it be true? Commencing distribution now. Form an orderly queue, please. The knight's voice echoed amidst the confused residents. Whoa! With a thunderous cheer, the people surged towards the tables. Stop! You must form a queue, or there will be no distribution. Hey, you there! Get in line. What could have turned into a riot was quickly quelled by 5 knights brandishing their authority. Is this really grain? Are we truly being given this? Yes. As long as you participate in the construction, your family will receive this every month. Every month? That is the will of His Grace. Who We're saved. Thank you, Sir Knight. Not me. It's His Grace's will. Still, thank you. Truly. As one resident after another received their grain, doubt vanished, and their cheers grew louder. Eventually, long live Logan McLean. This ordeal, led by Logan, was praised by the echoing chants in front of the outer castle walls,